Thank you all for coming. My name is John McKenzie. I am the founder and CEO of Elucid8. Our company, what we do is help other businesses do business with state, local government, and the education, so the SLED market. And if you're here today, it's, I assume, because you're interested in learning whether the SLED market makes sense for your business. So with that, I will go ahead and get into it here. So a quick agenda. I'm going to begin by breaking down what the SLED market is, just sort of go through what it's made up of, how it works, sort of set the stage there. Then I'll get into 5 reasons why I, me in particular, really loves working in the SLED market. Then we'll move on to 5 key considerations that you need to take into account before you choose to sort of dive right in here. And then leave you with some thoughts on how you can determine whether or not working in SLED really makes sense for your business. Okay. So let's start out by just taking a quick look at how money flows through government. This is an important thing to consider when you're thinking of doing work at any level of government, just to understand how the money moves through via a rather bureaucratic system here. So if you look at this or pyramid we have here, at the bottom of the pyramid, you have your residents, your citizens. They're paying tax dollars, pay taxes, federal government, state government, and local governments as well. It's a lot of money. So, annually, the federal government spends about $3.4 trillion, and $1.2 trillion of that money is spent or they're passed down to the states. The state annually spend $3.6 trillion. They directly spend, so purchasing products, services, $1.7 trillion. And then they further pass $571 billion down to local government, your counties, your cities and towns. And they collectively spend $1.8 trillion directly. So altogether, the SLED market, big, very big. It's $3.5 trillion that are being spent on an annual basis within the SLED market. What makes it so tricky is that $3.5 trillion is spread across over 92,000 different government entities. So there's a lot to sort through there. Let's start breaking down sort of letter by letter. Everybody knows we have states, right? Everybody knows we have 50 states. However, that's actually not the right number when we're talking about the SLED market. We really mean 55. And that's because we have 5 U.S. territories from a business perspective act just like they would a state. So when we say state market and the S in SLED, we're really referring to all 50 states plus the 5 U.S. territories. So Puerto Rico, Guam, American Samoa, a couple more. I don't feel like listing them. Geography quiz here. All right. So again, that 55 number, not really correct when you're thinking about buyers. How many buyers? What does this actual market look like? And that's because you rarely sell to the individual state. You typically are going to be selling and working with one of the various state agencies. And these can be things like departments, divisions, commissions, board. There are a lot of them. So the state of Florida, where I live and where my company is based, we have 111 different state agencies. So 111 departments, divisions, boards, and commissions. California has 237. If you move over to Wyoming, which is our least populated and most conservative state, they have 48. There's still that number, that 55. You really need to multiply it by about 50 to come up with a more reasonable number for the state market in terms of number of entities to potentially sell to. But let's move into local. So there are a lot of local government in the United States, 78,029 to be exact. And those fall into 2 separate buckets. You have general governments, and there are roughly 39,000 of those. Special government, and there are also roughly 39,000 special government. Now, general government, maybe think of as cities, counties, towns, villages, generally places where people live. While special government, we're very specialized. They're providing a specific service for a specific area. These are things like utility districts, hospital districts, irrigation districts, transportation districts. There are a lot of special districts. There are many, many, many different types of special districts. Now, let's take a look at a fake map here. It really helps to uh, emphasize an important point about the SLED market. So the public sector, specifically local government here, is really intrinsically tied to location, really more so than any other market out there, the possible exception of real estate. So if you're counties are always contiguous. And by that, I mean, if you're in the United States and you're in one county and move outside that county, you will enter another county. Same with states, right? As long as they're located in the contiguous United States, then you will always move from one to the other, and those will be contiguous. Now, that's not the case with cities, towns, and villages, or local governments here. Those are often not contiguous. Sometimes they can be. I'm from the Boston area originally, and pretty much all of New England, the cities, towns, and villages are contiguous. But that's relatively rare. It's not something you're going to see in lots of other places. Around major metropolitan areas, you do see that pretty frequently. But when you get to more rural areas, sparsely populated areas, you will see less contiguity with the cities, towns, and villages. But they are contained within a county. There are cases where a municipality might be in more than one county, but that's relatively rare. So then we have special districts. Special districts are typically going to be picking up a service that residents need, but is not provided by either the county or the city or town or village that they live in. And so special districts will have different borders than the county or the local governments, the cities and the towns. And it's important to note that the special districts don't always fall completely within a county. They can be larger than that. They can be smaller than that. They could, in fact, share boundaries with the county. It does depend quite a bit. The important thing to note is that they specialize in providing a service that the other governments in that area do not provide. Now, let's look at education. So there's almost 14,000 education agencies out there in the United States, public education, I should say. And the majority of those are what we think of as K through 12 independent school districts. And that's generally what people are thinking of when we talk about the ed in education. However, it's important to know that there's also community colleges, community college districts. There's also big public state universities, all fall into the ed category. And now if you're talking about those community college districts or the K through 12 education districts, you can see they also fall into an area on the map here where they're serving the same residents as the people who live in the cities and the counties and the special districts. Now, the reason I put all of this on a map is, and it'll start to become clear as I move along in this presentation, but the point is that these agencies, although they are doing different things, they are all providing what are really essential services to the same people. So their customers are residents. Their customers are all the same, even if they do something very different. So the water utility is providing services to the same people who are sending their children to the school district. And that's an important thing to know when you're working in the SLED market. And again, you'll understand why in just a few slides here. All right, let me talk about why my company, Elucid8, loves this market. First off, I've worked in it a long time, so I've really gotten to know the ins and outs and how it operates. And there are a lot of things I love about this market. From a business standpoint, one of the most important things is that it's really recession resistant. What I mean by that is that, the tax dollars pay for the budgets of a state, local government, or school district. And tax revenues tend to be relatively stable year to year, much more so than, say, consumer spending. Another point here is that when there is a downturn in the economy, the federal government typically reacts by stimulating the economy by pumping money into the state and local government. That's a important thing to know, is that a lot of times when the economy begins to take a dip and the federal government has a stimulus package, it's going to create more opportunities and more revenue and more potential in the state and local government market. And then, the needs of the resident, they don't slow down because the economy does. People still need water, they still need education, they're still driving cars on city streets. So just because the economy slows down, it have doesn't mean demand for services provided by cities slow down as well. So reason number two here, and this is an important one, is that governments always pay their bills. So I found this study done by Pew, and they looked at rates of bankruptcy amongst local governments from, I think, 2012 to 2017, so 5 years. And the rate was 0.1%, a tiny, tiny rate of fear for local governments. If you have a contract signed by a local government, they're going to pay it in full, probably going to pay it on time. That's not something that you see to this degree in any other market. Private sector businesses fail all the time, right? I don't know what the rate is, but it's a lot higher than 0.1%. So it is a very stable market and there's a lot of value there. SLED clients are loyal. And this one of the reasons it's so hard to break into this market, but it's also one of this market's greatest benefits once you're in. So government entities, particularly local government entities that are very close to the taxpayers, as in, the taxpayers can show up at their door at a city council meeting and say they're happy or they're not happy with how they're spending their money. They tend to be very risk averse when spending taxpayer dollars. And what that means is they want to work with businesses that have a good reputation, that they can trust, which makes sense, right? I want them to, with my taxpayer dollars, work with businesses that they trust. And so working with a business that you've already done work with and has done good work for you in the past, it's always a safe bet, right? So that does make it hard to get in the door, but it does make it incredibly beneficial once you're in. It adds to even more stability to this already very stable market. All right. Number 4. I love this one. They're willing marketers. And this is one that, I think a lot of businesses don't take full advantage of. But you got to realize, because these SLED entities, city, town, school district, whatever, because they are using taxpayer dollars to pay for your service, they want to show the taxpayers that they are using their dollars for good work. So you've all probably driven down a road or something and seen a sign similar to the one on the screen here, your tax dollars at work. And, that's a very tangible example because it's a physical sign up on the side of a road. But you, as a business selling to local governments, absolutely take advantage of the fact that they do this sort of thing, that they need, and that they're incentivized to promote the good work that you've done for them. So in the past, I have had lots of government clients that I've had who have been happy with my work, join me on webinars, speaking engagements, record short videos about them, about the work that we did and how it was helpful to the community. They want to do this stuff. They want to get the word out that they're putting taxpayer dollars to work and doing good things with it. So they're willing marketers. And if you approach the market, understanding that you're going to do good work and then use that to get more work, you'll do very well. And then, reason number 5 here is, SLED clients don't compete with one another. Think back to that map I showed you and the sort of the notion that these SLED entities providing different services, but to the same people. They have the same customers. It's a good way to think of it. So the result of that is that there is a culture of collaboration, and it's very prevalent amongst SLED entities. So In the private sector, Coke doesn't call up Pepsi to say, hey, we just got this great new technology and it's really making our work more efficient. You guys should do it too. That does not happen. That absolutely does happen and is a sort of regular component of working in SLED. They're not competing. They're not trying to put some other city, their neighbor, out of business. It's not how it works. They're all trying to lift each other up. And it's not something you will find in any other market. And again, there can be incredible business value from that if you know how to take advantage of that and use it in a way that helps you win more work. And so, a good example of how this works is that SLED agencies, they frequently establish different types of cooperative purchasing agreements for products and services. So it could be some sort of a interlocal government agreement that they use in order to do things like have a police force. But it could also be in order to purchase large scale technology that may benefit everybody in their community, but is maybe a bit too pricey for any single entity to purchase on their own. So that's something, that culture of collaboration is, constant. It's always there with SLED clients. And again, if you know about it and know that you can sort of harness that to help grow your footprint in the market, that will be very helpful for you. Okay, so let's move into some key considerations about the market. So not everything is, roses here. There are some challenges. There's a lot of challenges in this market. The first one that stands out is that the sales cycles are long, right? It's very, very rarely a quick sale when you're selling into SLED. I always tell clients that come to me that you want to plan on an 18-month sales cycle. Now, things can happen faster, that for sure. And after you spent some time in the market, built a reputation, built trust, you will get much faster deals. But for the purposes of forecasting revenue, you need to think about 18 months. So, I always want to have, if I have a sale, I want to make sure that my first contact that client, if it's a sort of a new client, 18 months in advance. And the reason is 18 months in advance of anything being signed is a good measure for when sort of initiatives, things that the city, that the county, that the school district, issue areas that the resident, the elected officials have identified that need to be addressed. It's about 18 months ahead of the, actually signing in a contract with a company to address those issues, that those things are first identified. And that's the point where you really want to have contact with these clients. About 12 months before you ever sign anything is when they're starting to prepare the budget, right? So, a budget is signed for a year, or maybe it's a 2-year budget, and they're pretty much immediately beginning to think about the next year's budget. How is this going to work? The 12 months out, they're doing the budget preparation. And if you're doing your work the right way, they're thinking about how your work, your product is going to fit into the budget. 6 months out, maybe the RFP development, we're starting to say, okay, we're going to have an RFP in order to secure a contract to address this challenge related to an initiative that we're looking to address. And you want to be involved in that RFP development process. You want to be telling the clients that these are the things they're going to want to put into that RFP when it goes out to bid. And then 6 months from that, maybe they've put out the RFP, there's been a response, they've evaluated, they've held interviews and everything, and then contract signed. So it's a long, long sales cycle. Again, it can certainly be faster. Not everything goes through RFP. There are ways to speed these things up, but not until after you've broken into the market and really earned trust and a reputation. So it is initiative-driven purchasing. And what that means is that your solution needs to help the client achieve their initiative. And the client, city or the county or the school district, and their elected officials are people who ran on some initiative, right? They ran on something that they were going to do, something they were going to fix. And then as a result of that is the city is going to start spending money, or, whoever the client is, the SLED client, is going to spend money to address the initiative that those elected officials ran on. So, how that relates here is that the reality is the financial ROI, proving that your solution has financial ROI alone is not going to win you contract in state and local government. The ROI is not just going to be measured on finances. It's going to be measured on, did you help to achieve the initiative? That's how they measure ROI. Did you get the return? As in, did your solution help solve this initiative? And those initiatives can be rather broad. They can be things like homelessness, or they could be things like, poor road condition, improving road condition, right? And so you may not be in the business of fixing roads, but you may have a tool that helps make that process more efficient, right? And so your measurement of ROI is, did you help them to achieve their initiative? That's what they're measuring again. They know they're going to spend money. That's what they do. They spend money to provide services. It's, did your solution help them achieve the initiatives that they have laid out the coming year, or maybe 2 years or 5 years, depending on where those initiatives are listed. It is very much a relationship-based business. So again, getting back to the idea that they are paying you with taxpayer dollars. So what does that mean? It means they want to trust that the work they get done, the products they buy, are going to be great, going to be around a long time, that they're going to be able to get help when they need it. And all of that relates to trust and relationships. So if you want to have success in this market, you need to put in the work, to do your homework, to put in the time, and to build relationships. That takes time. It's also can be, I think, very rewarding. And frankly, it can be quite lucrative. Again, it gets back to that loyalty. So it's hard though, right? It does take time. It is hard. You do need to be able to sort of speak the language. You do need to maybe not do things you would do in a private sector setting, like tell somebody in the public sector that they can get a deal if they sign a contract today. That's a great way to lose trust. It's, nobody can just sign a contract in the public sector on a whim, or at a moment's notice. So it's a relationship-based business, which has its advantages, but it's not necessarily easy or quick to build relationships. It is bureaucratic, right? Sometimes I think the bureaucracy of state and local governments is overemphasized. It's not always just, it's not always incredibly bureaucratic, but it is bureaucratic. He can't really get around it. That part does exist. It is true. And it's important to be able to follow the rules, right? There can be very rigid procedures, but you must follow them. If you don't follow them, you can lose a deal, and you will definitely lose trust. And then, the other thing is, the more money, right, the larger the contract, the more rules there are going to be. That's always going to be the case. Smaller deals often have less rigid requirements that you have to follow. I often advise clients, when you're starting out, try to start out with small deals. That's a great way to do good work on small deals that don't have quite as many regulations built around them. And it's a great way to start earning trust. Another thing to mention about the bureaucratic aspect here is that if you have a solution, or if you have a solution, a product, services that you have that the client really wants, they're going to help you as much as they can. There may be places where times when they can't help you due to regulations, but they're going to try to navigate you as best as they can if you've created the demand for your solution successfully. Okay, and lastly, really most importantly in my mind, is that if you're going to address the SLED market, you really need to create a filter. So you can't expect that, if you say you're working in the private sector already and it's going great, and you just want to start, you want to diversify your verticals and get the stability of the SLED market into your portfolio there. You can't just take what you're doing in the private sector, turn it over towards SLED clients and think you're going to have similar success. You won't. Things operate differently. There's different purchasing incentives, as we discussed. So you're going to need to create a tailored approach. So if you need to target SLED clients with a go-to-market strategy that's designed for the SLED industry, you want to train your reps, teach them some of the basics about how governments buy, how governments work. Train your marketing team too, right? Make effective marketing campaigns by training your marketing team on how to effectively market to local. And then make sure you're accounting for a long time to revenue. You can't start up a SLED program and be disappointed that you haven't done well, 3 months down the line or even 6 months down the line. That's just not the reality if you're breaking into this market. If you're going to break into it, it's going to take you time. It will pay off in the long run, but it is a long run, especially to get into the first time. So all of that really leads to the question of, does this market make sense for your business? And, I obviously can't tell you one way or another. As I mentioned, I love this market. I think it is, the government buys everything, right? They buy everything out there, well, from pens and pencils and school supplies to very sophisticated bomb detection equipment from police station things, right? They buy everything. It's a huge market and it's a stable market. So many good reasons to get into it. But depending on where your business is now, really depends whether that's really determines whether or not it makes sense for you. So I always advise clients to ask themselves a few questions about whether or not they should be getting into this market. So the first one is, does your product or services, do they align with the SLED initiative? So this is something the chances are they will, right? Most things, they buy everything. There's usually initiatives that no matter what you're selling, that you can align your product or services with. The trick is finding what those are. Then again, if you're, more of a B2C type business, they may not. It may not really align with the SLED initiative, and then it may not make sense. But if you can identify an initiative that that your product aligns with, then that's a good first step. You need to diversify your verticals, right? Do you need more diversified revenue streams coming in? If so, SLED's a great one. Do you want to add stability to your revenue stream, right? Are you looking for some security, some protection around potential downturns in the economy? If so, it's another good reason to think about getting into SLED. But if you need quick wins, that's not right for you. I had a client recently who needed quick wins, and so they probably will do a lot of work with cities and towns, counties later down the line, but they are starting out, they're relatively new business. They need quick wins now. It doesn't make sense for them to spend a ton of money on SLED at this point. A year or 2 years down the line, it probably will make sense. Probably be, an excellent market for them. May even become their primary vertical. But if they need, when you're starting out and you need quick wins now, you're not going to get those in SLED unless you have a long line of relationships already established and built. And then, lastly, can you adjust your sales operations accordingly, right? So can you have your sales reps understand how to work with SLED clients? Can you afford to send them to a sales training so they understand the purchasing motivations of SLED clients? They understand the SLED budget cycle. They understand, maybe partnership strategy and all these other things that are important to know when you're working in this market. You kind of need to be nimble, right? You need to be able to understand that you're going to forecast revenue 18 months out. Not every organization, sales operation is set up to do that or set up to make that pivot quickly. And if you're not, then and you try to get into a SLED market without being ready to make those adjustments, you're not going to see the return you're hoping for. So it's important to be able to do that and just be willing to do that, even if you start out small. So that is it. That is my presentation. I think it's scheduled from 1 to 2, and I give you a half hour of your time back. So hopefully people appreciate that. I certainly do. But yeah, if you have questions, I'd be happy to respond. And other than that, I think, and for everybody who registered, I'll be sending this out. And thank you all for coming.